American Homeland Security has promised greater enforcement of immigration laws, but many along this stretch of the border believe there will always be illegal crossings. Always. The trip for illegals across the U.S.-Mexican border is always perilous and dangerous. According to statistics, on average, each day, one immigrant dies crossing the desert, and often it is a child. Many of these defenseless children suffer abuse from their smugglers, and some are simply abandoned in the desert when the trip becomes too difficult for them or for the smugglers themselves.
When these parents, they unknowingly or knowingly, whatever it may be, pay these smugglers who are ruthless, who don't care about anything but the money they're making, and they pretty much put the hands of their children into these smugglers' hands, and they will do anything, you know, to make money, even if it causes the death of the child.
In 8 months, almost 40,000 illegal immigrant children were apprehended in the Tucson, Arizona sector alone, an increase of nearly 40% over the previous 2 years.
It's a significant business in this area of Arizona.
Since 9/11, the U.S. Border Patrol has more than doubled its forces, increasing its patrols and its arrests. As a result, parents already living illegally in the United States find that they can no longer risk a trip to retrieve their children by having to cross the border again, which means many families are faced with the harsh reality of being forced by their situations into having someone else raise their children in their home country.
¿Qué sucede con las familias mexicanas, migrantes? El papá y la mamá se van como indocumentados a Estados Unidos, quedan los hijos. Por lo regular, los niños siempre o están recién nacidos o son pequeños, siempre quedan con la abuela, con un tío, con algún familiar de la pareja que migró.
Once the undocumented immigrants are in the United States and have gotten jobs and settled in, living the American dream, they naturally want their families reunited.
Ese mismo pollero que llevó a la pareja a cruzar ilegalmente hacia Estados Unidos, a ese mismo pollero, muchas veces la misma familia le pide años posteriores, un año después o 2 años después, que cruce a sus hijos.
There are two ways of bringing children from Mexico to reunify with the families in the States. They either can try, the smugglers can try getting them through the desert or getting them through the port of entries. Both ways are dangerous.
For the illegal trip north out of Mexico and into the United States, the charge to smuggle for a Mexican child can range as high as $3,000, and for a South American child, up to $8,000.
We encountered a group of 14 people. There were 2 men, 14 or 16. There were 4 women. Each woman had an infant in each arm. They were each carrying 2 infants. And there were 4 or 5 younger children toddling along behind. And it was pretty obvious to me that all these children did not belong, to these women or to these men.
The volume of children who come through U.S. border port entries every morning is massive, because in many cases, Mexican parents obtain addresses on the American side of the border, and their kids cross to come to school. That's why roughly 100,000 illegal minor immigrants are stopped at the border each year.
Cuando el índice subió de muertes, ¿no?, de migrantes mexicanos, la gente empezó a agarrar las puertas de entrada para cruzar a sus hijos, ¿no?, hacia Estados Unidos.
At the Douglas, Arizona port of entry, U.S. Customs and Border Protection agents are trained to check for clues, focusing on child smuggling in each and every vehicle they inspect.
The officer on the line will specifically talk to everyone in the vehicle, to include children. And the one thing about children is that they can be taught maybe prior to crossing the border or coached on an answer, but ultimately our officers are also parents. They also can recognize the bond. They have the ability to recognize the bond between the individual and the vehicle, the adult individual and the child. And this is how it's a process of just doing what we do best, and that is talking with the adult people in the car, conversing with the children, and making a determination from there.
But that check by authorities is frequently offset by those who regularly bring children across illegally through a technique commonly used by smugglers. They drug the children to keep them from talking.
Dimetap, Tylenol, and Benadryl, and to basically make the child drowsy, sleepy, so that they're non-responsive, and it makes it a little bit more difficult for the officers to have any kind of conversation or determine the validity of the relationship of those people in the car.
And the officers are acutely aware that smugglers are using this method to drug the children.
One of our officers was on the line conducting an inspection that when they were talking to the adult occupants of the vehicle, they noticed a child in the back sleeping. This is not very uncommon, a child sleeping in the back of the car. The officer noticed that some of the questioning wasn't going as he felt it should. They also noticed a purple stain on the child's shirt. In a quick examination of the vehicle on primary, they found a bottle of Benadryl and the vehicle was referred. It was later found that child was being smuggled in.
Experience has also taught these authorities that the likelihood of an adult female smuggling children is far higher than of a man doing this kind of smuggling.
That's the preferred choice of smuggling children, is to use American citizen women, claiming that these kids are their own. And the vast majority of these cases are right through the port of entry, although we do encounter, many of them traveling through the desert like that.
And oftentimes, people from here will pay someone, to go south and retrieve their kids, their nephews, or whoever it is, and bring them across. And it's it really tears at your heart when you see that. You have, families that are broken up and trying to find each other, and and some of them probably never do reconnect.
This young boy traveled from his small Mexican village by bus to the town of Agua Prieta, Mexico, which borders Douglas, Arizona. His ultimate destination, the state of Virginia, where his father has been waiting for him.
Nomás me salí en quinto grado en el año pasado, iba en sexto grado cuando...
¿Ya no ibas?
No, nada más.
Ay, no, mi hijo, ve a la escuela. ¿Por qué quieres venir a los Estados Unidos?
Porque voy a trabajar.
Work is the key to his future, a far different potential future in the United States compared to life in his home village.
No hay, casi no hay. Paga muy poquito a la gente que trabaja.
Traveling with what's known as a coyote and 22 other illegals, the boy is concerned about U.S. immigration officers.
Nos cruzamos por el monte, pues hay migraciones. Y ya sabía que iba a agarrar a las migraciones.
The boy's group was eventually apprehended in the desert while he hid.
Sí, me dio miedo porque ya estaba solo, ya no hay con quién venir.
So, this frightened boy made his way to a nearby road and was apprehended by the Border Patrol. But even being caught doesn't deter him from his own plan for his future.
Un poco más adelante.
Though he didn't think so at the time, Fausto Carmuno Gonzalez was lucky to be apprehended by the Border Patrol in the desert so close to Douglas, Arizona. Mexican children over the age of 12, like Fausto, are sent back to Mexico at the YMCA shelter in Agua Prieta, waiting here until their family comes for them.
Y luego cuando llegaste aquí a Agua Prieta, ¿ya te estaba esperando el coyote?
No, el coyote no había llegado. O sea, me mandó con otro coyote. Conforme llegué del autobús, me bajé y me subí rápido. en el coche y me llevó al hotel.
Ellos mismos proveyeron un
Sí.
coche y te llevaron al hotel.
Sí. O sea, lo rentaron.
Y luego te quedaste ahí en el hotel hasta la hora de partir.
Sí, la misma noche. O sea, me mandaron con un jovencito de 15 años.
Ajá. La guía.
Sí, era la guía según.
Ajá. Y luego
salimos de allí como a las 9.
de la noche.
Sí. Íbamos 7 hechos bolita nada más y siguieron siguiendo las instrucciones que nos decía el muchacho. Cómo nos agachábamos y qué es lo que teníamos que hacer.
Él les decía cuando se agacharan. ¿Qué te iba a decir? ¿Estaba muy oscuro esa noche?
Sí.
¿Y no había luna? ¿Cómo miraban?
No había luna, pero... O sea, todavía se alcanzaba a ver tantito por las piedras que brillaban.
¿Cómo trabaja eso, los arreglos del coyote? ¿Ustedes los hacen o el coyote se los hace?
El coyote nos los hace, o sea, nos dice qué es lo que tenemos que decir cuando haya retenes para así mismo seguir adelante.
A system of checkpoints for the system of smuggling, each with its own password.
Hay retenes de México para acá. Sí. Y entonces ustedes tienen que contestarle a las personas estas.
Nos prepara el coyote para poder contestar nosotros.
Coyotes are also known to tell their smuggled goods that the city of destination is just over the next mountain, and that because of the short distance, the coyote services are no longer needed. All lies that leave the child on his own in the desert, in the dark.
Ya para que ya no hubiera peligro de que me agarrara la migra. Luego después de ahí para adelante íbamos a caminar 5 horas para poder llegar hasta allá, al mero Chicago.
And the number of children being caught and processed continues to grow.
Te da tristeza ver a los niños que, o sea, ven, se asustan. Sí. O sea, ves a los niños traumados porque ven oficiales armados, ven que la tía o el que es residente o ciudadano está llorando, que los detienen, pues tan pequeños, pues.
We immediately call the Mexican consulate, and one of the consulate staff will come down here and assist us with identifying the child and also in locating the parents.
Once they are identified, they are then taken back across the border to Agua Prieta, to the DIF, or Desarrollo Integral de la Familia, a state family social services agency.
And this institution basically works to help people, to help the families. In all cases they need. Poor people, people who needs medical attention, who needs another service that they have no money to do.
Juan witnesses families every day desperately trying to reunite. He remembers one family that hired a coyote on 3 different occasions to smuggle their 4 boys, ages 2, 4, 8, and 12, across the border. They were caught every time.
I think terrible experience because those 4 lives were in risk. Those children could die when they go walking through the desert, but the mother say that things cannot be worse than the poor life we live in Mexico.
This is the DIF shelter where the children stay while they wait for a family member to retrieve them. Here they have their own bed, an abundance of toys, and new clothes, which is probably more than they have at home.
Our shelter, Casa Pepito. Come in, please. Here we have the kitchen and the dining room. Here we have our girls' room, And here is the boys' room. Here is where they sleep at night. Here is the TV room. Here is where the boys look for the TV.
The DIF doesn't always have names or phone numbers of the children's relatives, making it awfully hard to make contact with a family member. Sometimes it is weeks, even months, before a parent or a relative comes for the children. And sometimes the children are never picked up. They call this baby girl Anna. She was just a few days old when someone tried to smuggle her across the border. Anna is now 3 months old and is up for adoption.
It's a terrible thing for us. It's difficult. We don't want to give them back because we know the risk. We have had experiences terrible where a person died, a boy died, a baby died in the desert. They have no water sometimes, they have no food sometimes. The weather is difficult, very, very hot or very, very cool.